Okay, working on my John Deere 2210. I had an issue where the drive shaft down there, the U-joints seized up and snapped off the shaft going into hydrostatic transmission. So replaced it, got it all put back together, and what I have here is I have hydraulic pressure coming from the hydraulic pump, which powers the SCV valve, it powers the lift, powers both of the PTOs, and also powers the power steering. Power steering's good. That works. And about that. So I've got hydraulic pressure from the main hydraulic pump, but what I don't have is drive. Actually, I should show you that too. So that's the swash plate. So I don't know if you can hear it, but when I press the pedals and it's in gear, I can hear something turning. I can feel a vibration in the pedal. Makes me think that something's going on inside the transmission here. I can take that plug off, and when I push the pedal, you should be able to see in there that swash plate does move. It moves forward and backward. You can actually see one of the plungers from the pump there. If I turn this over a little bit. Okay, made a little mess there. But you can see the hydrostatic pump is obviously turning. So I hooked up down there. Right in here, it's really difficult to get to, but I hooked up a hydraulic pressure gauge. That's a pressure gauge there. I am getting nothing. I should be getting some kind of low pressure somewhere in the 100 psi range when the hydraulic pump is running. That gauge is 4,000 psi, so if I'm getting 100, I probably wouldn't be able to tell. I need to get a different gauge for that. But also when I kick it in gear and activate the swash plate, I should be getting, before the pressure maxes out, up to 3,000 psi. So that gauge should be reading something if I had any kind of pressure in hydrostatic drive, which I do not. I have also, you can see the paint's off of these. I've taken these off. These are the forward and reverse pressure relief valves. Check those in the O-rings. Nothing wrong with the with those pressure relief valves. So I'm thinking it's back inside the hydrostatic pump to see what's going on down in there. Make sure I put everything together correctly. The other thing I want to check is to make sure that that's the hydrostatic pump, that's the center plate, that's where all the hydraulics work. That all connects back here to the main drive. There's a gear that connects these two here. I'm going to turn that gear by hand if I can, and see if the tires turn. Trying to make sure there's no issue with the gearing. So now, disassembly. I got to take that deck off. I got to take the ROPS off. Got to take 3-point hitch off. Got to take tires off, get down in here, undo some bolts on this side and bolts on the other side, and this whole hydrostatic rear final drive comes off. So, next step. Okay, now that I got the deck off, and I took the 3-point hitch off of the back, next step is to get rid of the roll protection, those brackets. There's 6 bolts in here. Get some light on that. So, bolt there, bolt there, bolt there. Got one down here. That's a nut. And then one more bolt there. And then on both sides here, there's 2 bolts that hold it to the frame. And that roller protection comes off. After that, then I need to disconnect power steering here. There's another connection. Let's see, it's this one here that needs to get disconnected, and I also have to disconnect the SCV valve, and then there's 2 bolts down here. You can see those back there, those 2 bolts on each side, and the transmission comes out. Oh, almost forgot, there is also a pin right here. This is what connects the front pedals to the swash plate. Take that pin out right there, and that disconnects this whole drive here. Okay. Second. We have got the pedal disconnected. We've got the power steering on the top there disconnected. Power steering down here on the side is disconnected. We've got the SCV disconnected, and I completely removed it. ROPS is removed in the back. We got 1 bolt out and another one loose on that side. And those 2 are loosened but not taken out yet. So I am going to remove those 3 bolts. And at this point, transmission should slide out. Actually, 4 more I forgot about. Also have 4 over the axle here. That, aha! I forgot to disconnect the brake. brake's just held in by a little pin. Snaps right on. Yeah, now let's see if she goes. Everything else is disconnected. It's loose. So what is, oh. Manually it says, sometimes you need an extra set of hands to hold these power steering lines out of the way. And it just slides right out. Okay, so now, as the manual indicates, I'm going to remove the fan so I don't break it. And then there's 6 bolts that hold the transmission on, and it comes right out. Alright, got some 10mm bolts in here holding the fan on. And yes, there's also a C-clip in there. And the fan comes off. Okay. A couple of 13mm bolts here. Hold the splash guard on. Just have to loosen them. It comes right off. And now, that's it. And we got 1, 2, a nut here, 3, 4. There's another nut down there, and there's another nut, another bolt right there. I'm gonna. These two are short. These two are long. Very long. See if we get the nut down. Yep. And there's a lock washer behind it, so make sure you don't lose that. Same thing with this one. Nut. And a lock washer. And one more bolt. Yes, also with lock washers on all those bolts. And at this point, transmission comes right off. There's the two gear drives. Then engage in the final drive here. This is the shaft that comes from the engine, goes all the way through, turns that, and I'm going to guess that's how the hydraulic pump runs. When you activate the swash plate here, which is a pretty strong spring, it turns the swash plate on the top hydraulic pump, which is supposed to drive this hydraulic motor. And the hydraulic motor turns the gears. Ah, yay! Okay, that is good news. Take my old broken shaft here. Is that one same spline? Yes, it is. Alright, so I left it in gear, and you can see if that motor was turning, I do have gear drive. My axle is turning. So that's good news. That means I don't have to take anything apart in there. All my problems are right here in the hydrostatic drive. So one of the things I did test while it was on the tractor, that's a test port, and that's a test port. I'll have to go back and look at the manual again, but there are also pressure relief valves here. There's pressure relief and suction valves down here. And I'm thinking that might be where my problems are. I'm going to get this up on the bench. That's a short one. And that's a short one. Okay. Plungers. I think I found the problem. And goes there. Oops. There goes there. Come on. Get on. Get on. Don't want the plunger blocks to fall out. Saw those metal shavings in the bucket, and I think the reason is this whole thing's been, that should be flat. That whole thing's been ground out because it slipped off this pin here, and this whole pump plate was spinning with the pump. Yeah, I've even got some score marks in here. So this baby did not stay seated, and it was spinning instead of staying locked in place like this one does. That one's in there. Let's see. There we go. You can get under there, lift that up. Well, that one's got a groove as well, but it's not torn up like that one is. And the face is nice and clean, doesn't have those gouges in it. Yeah, it locks in there nice. And this one, wondering if that, yeah, that won't even go on. That is my problem. That's definitely got a nick in it. And this pump plate is definitely worn. You see there's the swash plate. Put the plungers right on. They have oil in them, that's good. Okay. I am going to order a new one of these. Let's see something. They look to be identical. Yeah, that one snaps right in there. Okay. So this one did not lock in, it was spinning, and that's why that pump couldn't supply hydraulic pressure to that motor. I need a new pump plate. Okay, first things first, got to get this old bearing out of here. Got a bearing, needle bearing extractor or a blind bearing extractor. And try to get that. There it is there. Let's see. Turn on the light here. Try to get that to come in right in here, right there. That did it. Right tool for the job. Love it. This is a 10 millimeter. Loosen that up. That compresses down. That comes right off it. Alright. Not to get the old one with the new one confused. Actually, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the top side that has the letters almost worn off. Bottom side still has letters. And this is a new one. Nice and clean. One thing I did notice is that right out of the bag, the bearing wouldn't turn, but also had no lubrication, so there, that's much better. Now it's lubricated, it turns, and that down in there. Let's see, just for test fitting. Make sure that that does not extend up above that plate. Looks like it could go down a little bit more. I still got a little bit of a gap there. Much better. Okay. Alright, so this is the motor plate. Pump plate goes up there. Here's the old pump plate. You can see it's got grooves that are machined in on the face on both sides. You can tell it's the old one though, because this ring is just completely worn, screwed up. That goes back there. New ring for the hydraulic pump, not the motor. And let's see, it just says valve plate. There we go. This one is much better. Got a nice clean back surface. It has the same two grooves machined in the front, which the motor plate does not. So while they look to be almost identical, Same thickness, practically interchangeable. The difference does appear to be, as Bob L. said on the Tractor Talk, biggest difference is just that machined notch right there in the face. So this one for the motor goes here. This one for the pump goes right there. Now, the trick is to get this thing reassembled. You have to make sure, lubricate that. You have to make sure that these valve plates stay on. So you would think just leave it down like that and turn the cover, but then the problem you run into is if you seat this first, then you got your bearings that fall out of the top on both sides, both on the motor and the pump. So, and of course the plungers want to fall out too in the rotor. So and this presses down in there. So my thought is the best way to assemble this is going to be on edge. Flip this up on edge. Let's see. It's not going to work. Got the swash plate linkage on the outside. So I'm going to keep that side up. Let's see if I can do this here. Try to get these aligned. Put it together so that those cylinders keep the valve plates in place, and engage the splines back here. Oh, I think that may have done it. That did it. Now I've just got the just got the spring tension to overcome. And that is both valve plates I can see are in place. So I am checking in here very closely to make sure both of those valve plates are seated, which they are. At this point, that won't go in yet. This one will. One, two, three, four. The short ones go up here. This one goes here. Okay. Wrong place for the cap head screw. So all the cap head screws need to be recessed. These are the screws, the bolts that actually go all the way through and mount the hydrostatic transmission to the final drive. So, long one there, long one there, 1, 2, 2 short ones, long, long, and another long one right here. I believe, yes. Make sure my gasket's aligned everywhere. All the way around, looks good. Okay, got it started. Yeah. And these torque to 16 foot-pounds. So I'm going to wash my hands off, get my torque wrench, and do that real quick. Be right back. Okay, torque wrench set to 16 foot-pounds. Actually, not a lot. It's already all the way down. Back where I started. Okay. As long as there's oil flow. So, time to put it back on. See over at the transaxle. Alright. Before I get this whole thing back on the tracker and make it difficult to get to, I have got a new oil filter. I'm going to replace that as well. Most of the oil should be out of here already, but just in case. There we go. Okay. Oh, good. Now the oil comes out. Okay. Just went to get some oil to lubricate the gasket there. Use the high guard. Looks like I've got some right here. Tight. That should do it. Okay, now there are two studs that come out of here that the nuts go back onto. Oh, and there's also, almost forgot this. This is always fun. It's a bitsy tiny little screen that goes right in here, in between that orifice and the ball check valve that's on the hydrostatic transmission. So that goes right there. And if you struggle too much to get the transmission on, that falls out. So you've got to keep an eye on that. You can see here, there's the ball check valve that screen mates up to. Started. Make sure the screen's still in there. In. Okay. Two long screws go there. One medium length one. It's all the way down here. Two short ones, and they all have lock washers. Yes. Two short ones go up here. Lock washer and a nut over here. And one more down here. Somewhere. Where did we go? Ah. Oh, all the way down underneath. Okay. Get a wrench for that. Okay. 12mm socket. And no, right here. Right here. And now I need to look up the torque spec. I forgot what this one is. I think I mentioned it earlier, but worth mentioning again. If you do not have the tech manual for the 2210, tech manual part number is TM2074. If you don't have it, you need it. This gives you all the step-by-step details. There's what I'm doing right now in reverse, putting this all back together. Range transmission disassembly, putting that back on, and in the front of this section we have there we go. Torque specifications. Sometimes it's fun trying to figure out what they call things from one page to the next, but rear axle, final drive. Case cover. No way, the piece take 192. Oh, inch pounds. Not foot pounds. Final drive, case cover. Yeah, that was in here. Oops. This is where hydrostatic transmission will remove 5 cap screws during hydrostatic unit through the transaxle, and this is where you remove 7 socket head cap screws from the center case. Center case cover, that's where I got the 192 inch pounds, which is 16 foot pounds. So we're your wheel, your axle, housing, no, rear cover cap screws. Rear cover. Oh, so that's cover. Hydrostatic transmission cover. I think that's what they call that. Securing the hydrostatic unit. New oil. Move 7 center cap, move center housing, cap screws shorter. Inspect it outwards. Alright, I'm going to say they're calling this the cover. And 22 foot-pounds makes a lot more sense for a bolt that size. So I'm going to go with 22. Not much more than the 16 for the sockets heads. Yeah, that's sufficient. No doubt. Just enough to compress those lock washers. Nut here, nut down here. Okay. Now, fan. Where did I put it? There's the fan. This fan goes on here. And it is, put everything in a baggie so I don't forget. That first thing it holds it on is not screws, but a C-clamp, or spring clamp, whichever you want to call it. There we go. I think it just clicked in. Actually doesn't hold the fan in place. It holds the bracket behind it from sliding off of the shaft, but the little ears are just long enough that it prevents the fan from coming off too. So that's in there. Just spin it to make sure. Yeah. This one's 10 meter. This one is about 12. 13 millimeter. Alright, now it slides back into the frame. And this is going to have to come down, and I pumped this up so I could get my lock engaged. Disengage that. Oh, right here. This is the one where they say you need helping hands. So just make sure that that is eventually going to come back here. Okay, gotta come down. Right. More. Right there. Okay. Alright, now this one too. This one goes in between here and it will connect back there. We got to get this drive shaft lined up. That one's actually touching the front wheel drive shaft. So if you push up on that, that should pop in alignment first. Okay, nudge it.
Okay, you're there?
It's in, okay. Come up that one.
Oh, ouch. Okay, now it's okay.
Turn it. Turn it. So turn this. This will probably turn easier than the drive shaft. So you get that lined up. I'll turn this. Right there. Slow. So try it, let me try it. It might just go on. That looks good. Looks real good. high. Any idea what those torque specs are in there? This is, I'm going to say 40 foot-pounds makes sense there. Impact wrench pretty much put it there. Okay. So at this point, without putting rollover protection or 3-point hitch, I can reattach the hydraulics, fill it with oil, start it up, and we should be able to watch your rear wheels drive. And then I can put the rest back together. There we go. One, two, okay. These four are identical.
Why are you recording this, by the way?
Share.
That's what I was afraid you were going to. I thought you don't want to be on camera.
There we go. Okay. So one of these on either side of this. Can you figure out on here? Yes, I'm like, you are looking for things for the SUV. See if we can figure out the port section.
So do the same section.
It could be in the same section.
PTO hydraulic line down there. There you go. Very cheap. Or county.
Okay. Alright, my battery died, but in the meantime, I have reattached the SCV lines, reattached the power steering, got the rollover protection frame attached to the back, and I have filled it with hydraulic oil. So right now the only thing left, I've also got the electrical reconnected so that the seat switch allows me to start it. Temporarily attach the range lever, and I am in neutral. Success.